Live.
Happy Thursday there, Sacramento Kings fans and listeners of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. My name is Matt George from Sports 1140 KHTK. I hope you know that by now. Joined by the one of the main men at Cowbell Kingdom, Mr. Leo Biaz. Leo, good day to you, sir.
I'm good, Matt, and I'm happy that you feel a lot better.
Oh, man, I was battling the worst headache that I've ever had in, ever. I don't think it quite qualifies as a migraine because I've heard migraines can get 10 times worse than that. But it was one of those pounding headaches that just would not go away. So it was awful, but I finally got rid of it. Happy to finally get rid of it so I can get back to the flow here. I missed the Sacramento Kings and Detroit Pistons game.
They're 4-0, buddy.
I tell you what, no, I think it's 3-0. They're 3-0 in games that I have not been to so far this season. So I'm convinced it's me. So I'm going to go because I can't miss a game tomorrow with LeBron James being in town. So I'll definitely be there at that one. But if they get blown out in that game, I might sit out the next one against like a top tier, like against Oklahoma City. And if they beat Oklahoma City, I'm just going to move out of the state. Because I've lived in the state the entire time that this drought has been going on. Well, I lived in the state during the high moments as well, but I'm just going to say it's my fault so you can run me out of town with a wild witch hunt. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting week. We had the Warriors in here, a good competitive first half. Second half, the Warriors flipped that switch, and then the game against Detroit was ugly, almost the exact opposite. It was ugly at first, and then the Kings made a triumphant comeback, and now we have the Cavs to look forward to, and then we have the Oklahoma City Thunder to look forward to, and then back onto the road for quite a while. Oh, we also have Atlanta coming in here as well. It'll be interesting to see Paul Millsap, and always fun to watch the Dwight Howard and DeMarcus Cousins matchup, mostly because I enjoy watching DeMarcus Cousins absolutely abuse Dwight Howard and prove that he's the softest big man in the NBA, which is an absolute fact. I cannot stand Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard drives me crazy. Ever since the stunts he pulled in Orlando, he's just lost more and more respect for me. So anytime I can see him get abused by DeMarcus Cousins down low, I'm a happy camper, and I would pay good money to see that happen.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that the Kings are 3-0 when you're not there, and the Kings are 4-0 when Jerry Reynolds is an analyst during their CSN post-game show, and it sucks because Kings fans find the smallest superstitious things because they are a fan base that have suffered for a decade, and anytime they can find the smallest thing, they will just put it out there and say silly things like that. But at the end of the day, Matt, it comes down to late game execution, and that's something that the Kings have not been very good at. Last game they did that, and I'm happy for them. But again, they cannot fall behind by 16 points against the Pistons or other playoff contending teams and expect to make the playoffs.
I know we talked about that proverbial switch that the Warriors and really good teams are able to flip, and the Sacramento Kings just have not discovered what that switch is yet, or maybe they can kind of flip their own switch on the offensive end of the ball. But when it comes to defensively, when the other team flips that switch, the Sacramento Kings just have no answer. It's been an issue that this team has had for quite a while, and I don't think anyone really understands that switch until they become a winning program to where they understand their identity, they understand what they're good at, and they know not just by their talent level, but also just mentally, they know that they are the better team. They are able to take it to that next level and be successful. I think DeMarcus Cousins knows he can do that and take it to the next level with his own game, but as a team, the Kings don't know that they're able to flip that switch yet. So that's something that they're slowly going to translate or transition into, hopefully, as the wins start to come. But absolutely. And you talk about, I mean, if the Kings are struggling now with not just that next level part of a regular season game, and with also the fatigue levels of a regular season game and how physical the games might be or how long they might be, the playoffs is a whole different beast. And I mean, we in Sacramento don't necessarily understand that as much as elsewhere, but ask any player in the world and they'll tell you all of a sudden, you could be the most injured, hurt, banged up, old player in the world. But when you get to the playoffs, that adrenaline picks up, that quality of game and that intensity changes. And suddenly it's a lot more physical. It's a lot more aggressive. And the Kings are going to have to be prepared for that if they want to make it to that next level. So for them to be frustrated by or unable to compete at times with that switch flipped currently, it worries me for any thought of not just the postseason, but even the race to the postseason. Things are going to pick up even more come February and March if they're still in the conversation.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the postseason and the potential of the Kings possibly making it, because right now, when you look at the stats, they're 22nd in points per game at 102.2. They allow 104.7, which is 16th. But again, when your point differential is at a negative 2 point, whatever it is, that's not playoff worthy, Matt. And I just don't know what it is. And it just doesn't stop there. The Kings are an awful rebounding team. They rank 29th. They only average 40.8 rebounds per game, and they're 17th in assists per game, which is 21.7. And when you look at all these stats, you have to ask yourself, the Kings do not do one meaningful, like the Kings are not good at one department in meaningful stats. So to me, that has to change. Either they have to score more points and be more like a Trailblazers team that, yeah, they allow 111 points and average 108 points, and they're still at a negative 3 point differential. But I think as their players come back from injury, they'll get better defensively. But right now, I don't know where the Kings are better at, scoring points or stopping teams. And that's something that Dave Joerger will have to come up with, him and his coaching staff, and really the players within themselves. They have to ask themselves, what are we better at? What is our identity? And that's something that I don't know what the Kings are right now, because they're not good at any single thing.
And I don't think the Kings quite know yet. I think they know they have certain strengths, but it's not an all-around part of their game in terms of, obviously, they're one of the best, if not the best, in the paint scoring team because of one player. They seem to do well in transition offense. They've gotten better at taking care of the basketball in recent weeks, which is definitely a positive. But again, like
transition defense, though, they're really bad.
Right. And so there's not one particular area where they lock down with. And usually with every single playoff team, it's important to be well-rounded, but usually they have a part or an aspect of their game that is what they do or what they're good at. For example, the Golden State Warriors, they're a three-point shooting offense that can also hurt you on the defensive end. You look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're a team that's really good at slashing, attacking the basket, and they're also great in transition defensively. All these teams have different aspects or parts of their identity that make them solid. The Boston Celtics are a really, really good perimeter defensive team, and they tend to lean on that a lot. So it just totally depends on what kind of program you are. I don't think that Dave Joerger and the Kings have completely figured out what that aspect is yet, but I'd rather them be in the conversation and be somewhat well-rounded in all areas, but struggle to find that one niche than to be what they've been in the past 9-10 years, which has been a very, very good offensive team and an atrocious defense that doesn't help you win games. A lot of times people forget because the game is so driven by the offensive end of the ball. The Kings were one of the top 10 offenses throughout this drought that they've been in. They've been a phenomenal scoring offense, and that continued last season. However, defensively is where they struggled. So now as the offense has gone down, the defense has started to come up a little bit to that point where you almost want to find that even point differential or that plateau, and then you can start building from there. So I still think the Kings are working to get to that plateau, but the fact that they're making that transition and they're in the conversation, I think is a positive.
See, I don't. I rather be at a point where I know what this team is capable of, because when you know what a team is capable of, now it's a matter of just tweaking certain things and putting the players that will succeed. So if you think you're a defensive team, you want guys like Tolliver out there, like Garrett Temple out there, even there in the Flalo. Rudy Gay, Omri Caspi, Matt Barnes, even though Matt is known to be a defender, they've gotten killed all year long on defense. So I like how Coach has inserted Tolliver and Temple into the starting lineup the past 2 games, which is something that I've been talking about for a while, inserting Tolliver, which is, to me, the Tolliver effect, something that we talked about when they signed him and how Detroit succeeded when they had him in that starting lineup, playing alongside a guy like Andre Drummond, who dominates the boards, who is a huge defensive anchor. Man, I just enjoyed watching that kid play a couple nights ago, and how he just plays with that tenacity, and how he doesn't give up an inch, especially to a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. And even Cuz after the game was like, I think someone asked him if he enjoys playing against really good bigs, and he said no. He flat out said, I do not enjoy playing against really good guys because they make my life difficult. So when you see a guy like Drummond, and that's what I was talking about earlier during the offseason, it was never out of the question inserting Tolliver into this lineup, because now Cuz can pass out of the double, triple teams that he does get night in and night out. And if Tolliver continues to shoot that rock like he has, which right now he's averaging above his career averages, which was 41%. I think he's shooting like 44 or 45% right now, which is really good. So if he continues that, then he is the right move, and that you can say that poor man's version of a Ryan Anderson at $8 million per year.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right in a lot of what you say. You mentioned DeMarcus Cousins, and that's really what the majority of this podcast is going to focus on, because a lot of the talk in recent weeks, especially after that win over the Detroit Pistons, also because of the win, Cousins and company were in a lot better mood. Had they lost by 18 points, I don't think we would have had nearly the same press conference that we did. But a lot of it has been focused on a potential contract extension for DeMarcus Cousins. And I'm interested to hear, it sounds like the general population, the vocal population, at least on social media, which tends to gear towards the younger crowd, is excited about the idea of locking DeMarcus Cousins up to a 5-year, $200 million deal. I'm in the process of writing an opinionated piece on the entire situation. And I can't keep my cards under the table because I, for the sake of the podcast, have to put it out there. I'm under the impression that I think, and hence the title of the article is going to suggest when it does come out here in the coming days, I think DeMarcus Cousins deserves every cent of that payday that he's going to get. Now, there's an asterisk put near that, because there are certain elements that are needing to be discussed primarily. And this is something that we actually broke on The Drive, the morning show that I work on at KHTK. Carmichael Dave broke it after the Pistons game, and then we brought it onto our show the following morning. One of the potential negotiations and stipulations in that contract extension for DeMarcus Cousins is a no trade clause. That's something that we will talk about in just a little bit, because I feel like that's where the major hiccup is in this conversation. But just to get into the water slowly on this conversation, yes, I do believe that someone with the quality of a player that DeMarcus Cousins is, put aside how much he's won, and put aside maybe his issues on the court or off the court with his attitude or his explosions or his that aspect of his game, just basketball alone, I think DeMarcus Cousins absolutely deserves to be getting a max deal. And I hope that most people understand that money has to do with the type of player that he is, not what does he do for me right now. And I think that's a big difference when it comes to how Kings fans are looking at it.
Yeah, and talking about the contract extension, that's been common knowledge for about 5 months now. Everyone in the local media knew about it. It was only a matter of time, and as time gets closer, it's going to come up. And if we go back to the last three podcasts, I mentioned $200 million plus, because I knew what the designated option for star players were for certain teams, and obviously $200 million plus in today's NBA for a guy like D. Cuz is what the market is. It's supply and demand. So yeah, it's like the number is outrageous to me, and at $40 million a year, it's really like, whoa, but at the end of the day, it's what the market is, and that's what he deserves for being the individual talent that he is. Now, if we base things on winning, then yeah, he wouldn't be anything close to that number. But when you look at how good he is individually and the type of stats that he puts up night in and night out, then yeah, he's going to get paid. And to be honest with you, this is business 101 for him. It makes sense for him, and it makes sense for the Kings organization, because now if you do trade him in the future, teams are willing to give up more as opposed to giving you less, because you don't know if DeMarcus Cousins might leave next year. Because right now, and it's a huge issue with Rudy Gay, teams know it's a rental. So the Kings don't want to be in that same situation next year. So it makes sense to sign the extension, have him for the next 5, or, in essence, have him for the next 5 years. DeMarcus Cousins, he knows that the Kings are the only team that will pay him the most money. So it makes sense for him financially, for him and his family. So this is all common sense. And I've been saying this for the past 4 podcasts that he was going to sign that extension. And again, I find it funny that people call that loyalty, which I'm not saying that he hasn't been loyal, but to me, this is not loyalty. To me, this is common sense, and it's logical. You want to get paid the most money, and it's a huge difference between what the Kings can pay him and what other teams can pay him. So
$80 million.
Yeah, so to me, this is not loyalty, and like everyone's saying, like he wants, of course, this team is going to pay him a lot of dough. So it's a logical decision. It's a common sense decision, and it's the right decision for both parties.
We're going to revisit the loyalty conversation because I think it's definitely an interesting aspect to it. And there's a part of that I definitely want to talk about because I feel it's important to talk about. However, I want to just go back to the actual contract itself. We mentioned the $80 million difference. So a new stipulation was added in contract signings by the NBA to encourage players to stay with their current teams so that we'd see less of the Kevin Durant situation of, hey, I'm just going to go and take less money or nearly a similar amount of money to go play for a super team like the Golden State Warriors. So the way it works is the max deal that DeMarcus Cousins can sign is 1 year and $80 million less if he signs with another team than if he signs with the Sacramento Kings. So if he signs with the Sacramento Kings, yes, he's guaranteed for 1 more year, which that might scare some players away. But when you're 26 years old like DeMarcus is, it really shouldn't. If anything, it just makes you even more happy because you have that guaranteed longevity in the league. Plus, all that money is guaranteed as well. It's not like the NFL to where if he gets hurt or if something happens that he's going to lose that contract. So DeMarcus Cousins will be making $80 million more and will be under contract with the Sacramento Kings for 1 year longer than if he had left or if he goes to leave to play for another team. So let's just look at that and weigh the major pros and cons of that. The pro from the Sacramento Kings perspective, this is from the perspective of the franchise, not from Cousins, is you've locked up the best center in the NBA for basically all of his prime. Yes, you're paying a crap ton of money for him, but you have the best center in the league under ink in your control. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's powerful. There's a lot of power that comes with that. Now, a con that can counter that is you've had him already for, what is it? It's the 6 years that he's in the league already. You want him for 5 more. You've had him for 6 and you haven't won anything. So what's to say things are going to change for 5 years? Do you really want to make that kind of, that's not just an investment. That's really an all in. And the reason why I say that is if you're signing that major of a deal, you mentioned $40 million a year to pay for DeMarcus Cousins. Is he worth that money? Well, with the new deal going on with the TV deals and all the money that brought in, as of right now, I believe, yes, he is definitely worth that money. However, if you're making a move like that, you're basically giving up on any opportunity to go up and try and attract another max deal free agent. Or if you happen to strike gold in the draft as soon as he's eligible for some kind of maximum deal, if DeMarcus Cousins is still under contract, then that makes those negotiations difficult. So you're really selecting your one guy for those 5 years. As of right now, all you know is Cousins is the best big in the league, so you have that guaranteed. However, it limits your ability to throw that money around later further into that contract unless you want to trade him, or unless the salary cap goes up even more, or you want to risk going into the luxury tax, which the Sacramento Kings have tried to avoid as much as possible throughout their time in Sacramento. So those are the major pros and cons. And Leo, before we move on really to both the loyalty conversation and this no trade clause, I'm curious just what you think about that pro and that con, and if you think those pros outweigh those cons in the perspective of you lock up the best big man in the league, but you maybe limit your opportunity to go out and get a guy like a Gordon Hayward who may test free agency, or another solid small forward or shooting guard that you could go out and offer a good amount of money to entice him to come to Sacramento.
Yeah, and I'm reading the comments, and Danny says Boogie loves Sacramento, and yeah, he does. He loves Sacramento. I would too, and you would too, Matt, if they offered you $40 million a year, and and if they allowed you to do what you want, which is what he's been able to do the past 7 years. So in that aspect alone, I love Sacramento, and I'll show all the loyalty in the world. But again, to answer your question, there are a lot of pros and cons to this. I thought Andy's column yesterday was pretty interesting, and how he phrased it, where are Kings fans willing to pay him the $200 million? And he kind of twisted it towards the fans, because at the end of the day, the fans, they're a major part to the success of teams, and
they're in charge of a lot of the bill.
Yeah, and they pay the bills in essence. And I thought it was interesting that he brought up facts that he's the slowest player. He gets the most block shots. Even a guy like Isaiah Thomas, he's right there with him, who's 14 inches shorter than he is. And, yeah, he has issues with DeMarcus Cousins, but a lot of the things that he said, they were facts. And we can't deny those things. Now, I'm not going to say I agree or I disagree with what he said, but those are all facts. And, fans have to take that into consideration and just put things in perspective, because a lot of fans just see him, they see Aileen as just haters, and right. I don't think that's the case. I think if you have an opinion and you back it up with stats, then your opinion to me is valid. And so again, and you see these things on Twitter, and I do want to address this. A lot of the Twitter crowd are young people, anywhere from 15 to 35, right? And I feel like when I listen to Grant's show, I would say about 80% of season ticket holders are tired of, the tantrums that they see night in and night out. And those voices are not present on social media. They're not present on Twitter, because I don't see those same opinions on Twitter, right? Because we see a lot of DeMarcus love and loyalty, etc. So, but when you take into account that a lot of the season ticket holders are tired of this, then yeah, Andy brought up many, many valid points, Matt. And again, it will limit the Kings to signing other players if, in fact, they do sign DeMarcus to this $207 million contract. But again, I believe that the salary cap will go up, which in essence might even put you in the same situation where, say you have $90 million to spend and DeMarcus was getting paid 20, then you're still going to have what you had to spend. So I think now it's just a matter of the Kings winning games and the Kings making the playoffs. That in itself will attract a player like a Gordon Hayward to leave Utah, where he's in a great position right now. And that's one of my favorite teams in the West. And I think that's a top 4 team, in my opinion, right now, even though they might not be a top 4 team in the standings. But when it's all said and done, I think they'll be in the top 4. And for the Kings to reel someone in like that, away from a team that right now they're in the right path, it's going to be difficult, Matt.
So let's talk about the loyalty aspect of the conversation, because DeMarcus Cousins puts a lot of his pride and his identity and who he is on that word, on loyalty. And to a major extent, it's true. that is who he is, and he is a very loyal person, and loyalty is very important to him. He named his clothing line Loyalty. He's built upon it. He mentions it constantly when dealing with media or teammates or coaches. Loyalty is super important to him, and he's someone where if you have his back, he'll have yours, and he'll go to war for you. If you don't, he'll go to war against you, and he'll use you as motivation to become the player that he is and to achieve greatness. That's just who DeMarcus Cousins is. So I do believe him when he says that he is loyal towards Sacramento and I do genuinely believe that he enjoys it here in Sacramento. And I'm basing that off of the fact that players like a Chris Webber or players in the past have judged Sacramento and then come here and recognize the community, recognize the fan base. The fact of the matter is the Sacramento Kings do not deserve the crowds that they get. And I've talked about that with multiple members of the media. I was working with the Miami Heat radio team a couple nights ago when the Heat were in town, and we were talking about how full the building was. And he comes from the East where they play the Washington Wizards, and they play all these teams all along the East Coast that struggle to get 5,000, 10,000 people in their building. I mean, you guys saw how empty it was when the Kings played the Nuggets and how empty it was when the Kings played the Wizards. It's sad, but a team like the Sacramento Kings who has struggled and literally put their fans through hell in terms of a roller coaster of instability and bad decision making, and hey, that's a fan favorite that you like, let's let him go for nothing. Isaiah Thomas. The Sacramento Kings have put that fan base through the biggest of roller coasters you could possibly put a fan base through. And yes, you do have a brand new building, so I understand the appeal of that, but that building is full and loud a lot of the time, even against teams that you aren't really interested in, bad teams, so to say. I mean, of course, it's going to be packed when the Warriors come in. Of course, it's going to be packed when the Lakers, when the Cavs come in. But for those other teams that aren't as exciting, I firmly believe that when the Nuggets come to town here in the coming weeks, that the Nuggets are going to draw a big crowd, that when the bad teams in the East come to town, they're going to draw a big crowd as well, because that's what Sacramento does. So Kings fans, give yourself a pat on the back in that sense. But from DeMarcus's perspective, of course you like that. Of course you want to play in front of that. And of course you understand that and feel that as loyalty, because he recognizes what turmoil this franchise has been in. But now he knows that even through that turmoil and through that pain, he's in a brand new, the nicest arena in the NBA. That's what he plays in every night. And he's got pretty much a full house almost every single night that he plays. At least the crowd is loud and always invested in the game, and it's a one-sport town. So from that aspect alone, I think that I can understand why he feels loyalty for the city of Sacramento. Now, there's another part to that loyalty, which I want to dive into in a second, but to save myself from just talking for 5 straight minutes, Leo, from that perspective, just focusing on that, the crowds that the Kings attract, do you think that has an appeal on DeMarcus Cousins wanting to stay here?
Yeah, of course. Like, who doesn't want to play in front of the best fans in the NBA? And I know it's cliche to say, but our fans are the best fans in the NBA, and I haven't been to every arena in the NBA to back it up with, with a valid statement. But I've spoken to other guys in the media who have been to all 30 arenas, and from an objective standpoint, from members of the media that are not even Kings fans, because every member of the media has a team that they root for.
Right.
And when I spoke to this person, he said that the Kings are easily in the top 3. So with that being said, that's pretty good. And yeah, I think that incentivizes him, or it attracts him. Sorry. But again, it would attract me too, just from this standpoint alone. I'm going to get paid $40 million, Matt. And I know that I have a lot of leeway in this franchise. So from that standpoint alone, I just can't ignore that fact. So it's hard for me to answer that just from how
okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, let's talk about that then, because that's the one major gripe against DeMarcus Cousins, using the word loyalty when it regards to to staying in Sacramento, and it's a very valid argument. Before I dive into that really quick, though, I also want to mention we work with a guy. He covers the NBA for Italy. He's a phenomenal guy, Ricardo, and he's one of the guys who I've bonded with and become a really close friend with.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about.
Yeah, Ricardo. He covered the San Antonio Spurs for quite a while when Marco Bellinelli was a member of the Spurs. Marco Bellinelli being Italian, and he said even with San Antonio, as prestigious of a franchise as they are, and don't make a mistake, the San Antonio Spurs are the best franchise, not just in basketball, but potentially in all of professional sports. Even they struggle to draw crowds that aren't necessarily as full, but are as active as the Sacramento Kings are and as invested as the Kings are into a game. I think that's a huge compliment to Sacramento Kings fans. But that aside, going back to the DeMarcus Cousins loyalty conversation, I'm just going to lay it out flat. It's easy to be loyal towards a city when you have the key to that city. DeMarcus Cousins is the king of the Sacramento Kings.
Exactly.
Castle. He's the king of the city. He can do pretty much whatever he wants here, and he understands that. He has been basically given, with the exception of the title of general manager, because he doesn't make the moves, but he is the franchise for the Sacramento Kings. Now, that's not unheard of. He's not alone in that because LeBron does it in Cleveland. I'm sure Russell does it in Oklahoma City. Steph Curry, to an extent, does it in Golden State. That's not an unheard of thing.
Yeah, but those guys are winners, though.
Exactly. But that certainly comes into play when you talk about DeMarcus Cousins wanting to stay in Sacramento. Why would you want to forget about the money? Why would you want to leave a program and a city and a franchise that has given you full control and has basically made you immortal in the sense that DeMarcus Cousins basically became immortal to this franchise when he screamed and cussed out George Karl, a Hall of Fame coach. Now, at the time, we didn't know all of this book stuff about Karl that we know now, so try and put that aside, if you will.
Yep.
But George Karl, the brand new head coach, Hall of Famer George Karl, was screamed and cussed out by DeMarcus Cousins. Karl approached Vlade and the Kings asking for a suspension and a move of respect. Yes, there was probably ego tied to it as well. And Vlade and the Kings sided with DeMarcus Cousins. From that point, Cousins was immortalized in his eyes with the Sacramento Kings. He thought, I can do no wrong here. And to an extent, he can. So yes, that is a factor when it comes into why he would want to stay at the Sacramento Kings. And to say it's not is naive. However, that being said, I know you're strongly opinionated about Leo. I believe that while he has been given the keys, and it's in some sense a bad thing, with the rest of the NBA doing it and with wanting to lock up a guy as good and as potentially life-changing or franchise-changing as DeMarcus is, I think that's just part of the bargain. So that doesn't really bother me as much. The no trade clause bothers me, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but I want to get your chance to respond.
Everything you said was right. I don't have much to add to that because I feel like I've already stated my opinion on that. And but you know, when you talk about loyalty and the things that he does, it just from this fact, he lives by two things: loyalty and being real, right? Like, he hates fake people. That's just a fact. Like, he can sniff you out and know that you're fake. But, and I hate to bring this up, but the day he issued his apology, that same night, he went on Instagram and he posted the Denzel Washington video, talking about how you're if you listen to the media, you're informed, and then you're misinformed, right? Along those lines. So for me, it was a slap in the face, and his apology meant nothing, and his apology was fake to me when he went that same night after all that drama to go and just end it like that, pretty much saying, yeah, this was a fake apology. So, and he talked about being real. To me, that was fake, and to me, that wasn't real. So, you know, it goes back to what you said. He has the keys to the franchise, and he does what he wants. And again, if he was LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, I would be okay with that. But he's not that, and I don't know if he ever will be. Can he be that? Of course he can because he's that talented. But as of right now, no.
I think GGDJSF here, I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm just going to say that. He says a really good point here. He says, I think they're doing this so everybody can stop at the trade rumors every damn season. I don't think that's the main reason. However, I would not be surprised if that's part of it. I'm sure DeMarcus Cousins is tired of hearing of it. And if you're Vlade, I'm sure you pull your hair out with the amount of times that you're hearing this from the media and that national media perspective. And then I'm sure you're getting phone calls all the time of values that are undermining you as a GM and your franchise because they think they can try and take advantage of you. So I think that plays a part as to why they want to lock him up long term. There's no more avoiding it. We have to talk about the potential no trade clause, though. If siding with DeMarcus over George Karl immortalized him, giving him that max extension with a no trade clause is essentially making him a god. Yeah. It's giving him every bit of power you could possibly give him to where he, at that point, if things go horribly, horribly wrong, he has the power to hold the franchise hostage because they can't.
At this point, he does not deserve that option.
And I totally agree with you. I don't think anyone besides a LeBron James or someone who's been a finals MVP or a multiple championship winner deserves that. And the perfect example is Carmelo Anthony in New York. Look, Carmelo Anthony is holding the New York Knicks hostage. It's
exactly.
You can't say it any other way. The New York Knicks would have moved Carmelo Anthony years ago had it not been for that no trade clause. The reason why they gave it to him was because he was a big name, but he is not a team player. And he holds that city franchise because they cannot win with a player like Carmelo Anthony. I'm not saying DeMarcus is that person, so slow down, angry Cousins fan. He's not. Cousins is not nearly the teammate that Carmelo Anthony is, and that's a good thing because Carmelo gets his teammates, Cousins gets his teammates more involved and is more of a team player and more of a leader than Carmelo will ever be, in my opinion. He hasn't won as much as Carmelo, but he's a better team leader and player, in my opinion, than Carmelo Anthony. That being said, you still do not want to give that kind of power to someone who has not been able to win more than 30 games for you. Because in the case that it doesn't work, in the case that he and Vlade or he and Jaeger have a falling out, your decision's already made for you. You have to replace the coach or replace the GM again. You can't get rid of Cousins because contractually you cannot get rid of Cousins. So it's extremely frustrating and disappointing in a lot of ways. That could potentially be part of the deal. I hope it's not a deal breaker if the Kings don't give him that. But if the Kings do that, there's about a 65-70% chance they're digging their own grave and potentially destroying themselves. I don't see any benefit for a franchise to make a no trade clause unless that is the only possible way you're going to lock a player down. And I don't think DeMarcus Cousins would say no to the 5-year, $200+ million contract if they don't offer him the no trade clause. If he gets that, though, of course he's going to ask for it because he gets even more power.
Yeah, and to me, it's just a bad idea, Matt. I cringe at the fact that just the fact that this has came out. Now, do we have confirmation that that's what they've been talking about? Like, is that true or is that just speculation, Matt?
From what I know through what Carmichael Dave has said in his conversations with people who are close to DeMarcus Cousins, that has been something that has been brought up in negotiations as a reason why, or a stipulation that Cousins and his camp want in the contract. Beyond that, I have not heard any confirmation or any sense of the Kings saying.
So it's speculation, which I'm happy it is, because anyone with a brain knows that that's just a bad idea. I don't want to use any analogy that's going to get me in trouble, but it's just a bad idea. And it's something that should not be on the table, especially for a guy who has yet to win 35 games. And I'll just end it at that.
So, I mean, if that is part of the contract, it becomes a bad deal. In my opinion, if it is not in part of the contract and you lock up DeMarcus Cousins for that 5-year deal, despite the past and despite the struggles and the fact you haven't been to the playoffs yet, I think it's something that the Kings have to do. Like you said, it gives them a bargaining chip in terms of if they do trade him in the future, someone has to pick up that paycheck, but they get the best center in the league locked up for long term. It's not a rental now. It's at least a 3 or 2 year or maybe even 4 year deal, depending upon if things go south with the Kings. In that sense, it's a move that it shouldn't be surprising that the Kings should make it. And a lot of people on our comment stream are asking when they would be able to make it or if they really are considering doing this. July. It would happen in the off season. Negotiations are starting now, just conversation, which is pretty common. But if both sides know what they want to do and get it hashed out early, it does a lot for your franchise in terms of getting rid of rumors and helping that train kind of slow down a little bit. So in my opinion, DeMarcus Cousins will re-sign with the Sacramento Kings. And again, I'll release an article about it in just a little bit. I think he deserves every single penny of that contract extension because of how dominant he is as a player. I believe him when he says he is loyal to Sacramento because this crowd has proved their loyalty. I also understand that he has the keys to the city here. In the grand scheme of things, I think there are more positives that outweigh the negatives with Cousins signing him to that long-term deal. However, if you do sign that deal and things again don't get better 2-3 years down the road, then there's not much more you can do. At that point, he's starting to exit his prime.
Yeah, and someone said, Leo, please tell me what you feel he should get from the Kings. Again, I'm a businessman, and I understand supply and demand. He deserves those $40 million, but if it was up to me and in my perfect hypothetical world, I would give him $20 million per season because of the talent that he is. But again, we're not in the old CBA. We are in the new era of NBA basketball, and he's going to get paid those $40 million with the Kings or with anyone else. It'll be what, like 32, 33, Matt? So regardless, he's a player that will get 30 million plus every single year right now.
Don Weir's Reno Dodge dealership is giving away our paired tickets to the Kings versus the Thunder game on the 15th of January. That's coming up quick, but if you get to, or you will get to watch Russell Westbrook for a second time at the Golden One Center, and Russell has just been unreal this season. All you have to do is purchase or test drive a car at the dealership, and Reno Dodge will enter you into the giveaway. So for those of us in Sacramento, it's a little more difficult to do, but hey, you want some tickets, just drive down to Reno, take a test drive. You have a chance to win those, but there's also more. They will also match your down payment up to $1,000 if you decide to purchase a vehicle. Don't forget to mention that you heard this on the CK podcast. I'll also hook you up with some pretty sweet deals and definitely give you and us a thumbs up for all that. Again, a chance to win tickets to see the Kings and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And whether the Thunder is good or not without Durant, any chance to see someone with the artistic, and I say artistic style of Russell Westbrook is certainly something that you want to do. So you're running out of time for that, but an awesome deal. And I really hope one of our close listeners here is able to win those tickets. And if you do, come see us, say hi to us at the game as well. We love talking to you, and we'd love to see you and meet you in person. So again, that's Don Weir's Reno Dodge dealership.
Yep, and we even hooked up a huge Kings fan in Section 106 last game. So again, Kings fans, stay tuned for more giveaways. We're doing this all year long, and yeah, Section 106 is going to happen again. I don't know when, but keep your eyes open for that, man, because those are really good seats.
Well, the next game we have coming into town, the Cleveland Cavaliers and Mr. LeBron James, the king of basketball, so to say, which is why he deserves to play for the Sacramento Kings, but that's neither here or there. I can dream, can I? LeBron and company coming to town after losing to the Portland Trail Blazers, which the Kings always seem to get the major teams after a surprising loss, which means they're not going to lose 2 in a row. They're going to come in hungry and angry and ready to go. So any chance of the Kings winning that game has diminished by maybe 99%. Maybe there's 1% little hope, hey, little sparkle that Cousins can go for 65 and the Kings can somehow pull one out. They play the Cavaliers well historically in Sacramento. I still remember one of my favorite games that I've ever gone to was the game that went to triple overtime between the Kings and the Cavaliers. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. It was when Shaq was a Cav.
Oh,
Or what was his name?
Zaza.
Yeah, Ilgauskas.
Oh, yeah,
Zydrunas Ilgauskas
corner shots.
hit like 4 corner
I was
threes
there.
in a row. Oh God, painful game. But still, those are the kind of games you usually get when the Kings and the Cavaliers play. So I expect another fun atmosphere out of the Golden One Center tomorrow night. So we have to talk about that just a little bit. But it's unfortunate and it's frustrating, Leo, that of course of all the teams that they had to lose to, it is the Portland Trailblazers that the Kings are in a race with for that 8th spot.
Yeah, and again, Portland to me is the team that I believe will make the 8th because they're getting healthy again. So when you beat the Cavs, and look at the Cavs I think they were stuck at the airport and they got home late and it was just a mess. But that team, again, like you said, it diminished all chances, in my opinion, of the Kings beating that team because if they were going to give a game out of both teams, the Blazers took fully advantage and they beat them at their place. So I just don't see this team beating the Cavs. And, the Cavs are a team that averaged 109 points per game, which puts them at 4th in the NBA. And they're 11th in points allowed at 103. So they play offense and they play very good defense. You have LeBron James. You have their shooting guard that took over J.R. Smith from injury. He's a very, very good defender. I forget his name. But
Iman
again,
Shumpert?
no. It's he went to Kentucky. Let me look up his name real fast because that guy can flat out play defense, and his name is Liggins. He went to Kentucky. Yeah, he's just a flat out shut out defender. He's 6'6". He's lanky. He's super athletic. He's been in the league 4 years. He's 28 years old, but this guy can play defense. And like LeBron said, obviously he's not J.R. Smith as far as because J.R. can spread the floor, and that's something that's a huge reason why they went out to get Kyle Korver because he fills in that need. But Liggins brings a different dimension to this team, which is a shutdown defender. He played great defense down the stretch on Steph Curry, which is why they won that Christmas game. So when you see things like that, just expect this team to go at Cousins like every other team has. And I just don't see the Kings beating them, but you never know, Matt. On any given night, any team can beat any team. And, from that standpoint alone, the Kings have a chance, but I don't think Cousins needs to score 65. I think they have to have a balanced attack where everyone contributes. So I'm expecting Cousins maybe 25 points and 2 other guys to score 20 points. And that's how I see this team beating the Cavs. But like I said, when you average 109 points a game and the Kings are known to give up a lot of points, it's just not a good combination, man.
Look at the live chat coming in clutch with all the DeAndre Liggins comments. We appreciate you guys helping us out there. Xavier Joseph, you bring up a great point. It's the NBA. Anything can happen. You're absolutely right. Anyone can win on any given night, but the Cavs are the Cavs for a reason. Danny, I hope Korver doesn't go off on us. That's a great point as well. It'll be fun to see how he makes that transition to be with the Cavs because they can be scary if he gets back to what he was a year or 2 years ago and how much space he can open up for LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. God, just a scary thought. But yeah, of course, it's going to be a great game, a great atmosphere. We hope the Kings are able to compete and do so at a high level. I firmly believe that they are going to be able to at least hang with the Cavs for a good period of time. And we'll just have to wait to see until tomorrow. Our last podcast, we're running out of time here, so I want to make sure we get to it. Our last podcast, we ended it talking about changes that I would like to see made to the NBA playoff format. Now, this is just strictly speculation and thoughts and dreams on my part, but I'm interested to get your feedback, Leo, and then the feedback of our listeners. I would like the idea, and I talked about this on my YouTube page. It's also on my social media where you can look up. I talked about it in length for about 12, 13 minutes or something while I was driving home from work. But I would like to see the NBA adopt a system similar to the playoff format with like professional football, a 1-game playoff, winner takes all, get rid of the 7-game best of 7 series and make it a 1-game, 1-team takes all, because with the amount of super teams that we have, not just in the West, but in the East now as well, really it's top 3 and then everybody else. Mm-hmm. The likelihood or the chances of an 8 seed, 7 seed, or 6 seed winning 4 games against a team like the Warriors or the Spurs or the Cavs or even the Toronto Raptors, well, maybe that one's a little more possible.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely. And it almost means that even if you make it into the playoffs,
give them a bye week.
Yeah, might as well. Even if you get them there, the games have not been close. Last year's playoffs until the Warriors Thunder series and the finals themselves were terrible. There were blowouts all the time, and it was just not fun basketball to watch because you have the super teams and then you have everybody else that's just excited to be there. So I think they should consider changes being made. Now, the major hiccup is TV money. And the money side and that contract is always going to be the front runner as to why they're going to keep that 7-game best of 7 series format. However, I think it's bad for the game of basketball to continue to have that, but allow teams like the Warriors or the Cavs to exist to where there really is no hope if you're an 8th, 7th, or 6th seed.
Agreed. But again, you mentioned TV money, and money runs this world, and just from a gambling standpoint and the billions of dollars that are betted illegally. I mean, they don't want to see a 1-game playoff series because again, it's all about money, Matt, and I know it'll give that 8 seed and that 7 seed a better shot of beating these teams.
Oh man, but think about the excitement though. Just from a game's perspective, not a business perspective, it would do wonders.
It goes back to March Madness.
Exactly.
That's why we love watching March Madness, because it happens all the time.
You mean to tell me that fans would not tune in if they're watching playoffs, ho-hum, the Kings and Warriors 7-game series, you may watch, or even the Warriors and Blazers, you may watch a game or two in the beginning, and then once the Warriors are winning by 15 or 20, you'll turn it off or dismiss it as the series is over. But if you're just a common fan and you're just perusing through and you flip the game and it's the third quarter and a 1-game playoff between the Warriors and the Kings are the 8th seed in Golden State, and the Kings are up by 3 points with a chance to eliminate the Warriors. Tell me you're not instantly locked into that.
Yep.
It would be so good for ratings and so good for the game. And we've seen the NFL this season try and oversaturate their product, and their ratings have suffered because of that. I don't think the NBA is on quite the same path, mostly because their commissioner is not a moron. However, I think that there's the potential that these 7-game series with the more and more super teams that we see, and the fact that we're probably going to see the Warriors and the Cavs in the finals again, I think that hurts the league for the common fan. And I think that's going to suffer with ratings. If they want to fix that, I think a 1-game playoff makes everything instantly a lot more exciting. The intensity of the game itself is 10 times more exciting because everybody plays hard, because that could be their only shot. And suddenly the crowd is a lot more active. It's just in everything except for a TV contract perspective suggests that it's a good move to make. However, the TV contract, as we see by the salary cap, is pretty much what's in control.
Yeah, and someone just asked, when do we think that the Sixers will be championship contenders?
Not while Cavs in the East, or Cavs. LeBron is in the East. I'll tell you that much. Unless LeBron plays with the Sixers.
I don't know, man. I think Joel Embiid will be the best big man in in 3 years, barring injury. I know that's a bold statement, but like you said, I know Cuz said he won't be the best big until he retires. And, Joel Embiid came back and said, I don't have to wait until you retire because I'm not that far out. And, this kid, just from a defensive standpoint, is already better than DeMarcus Cousins. So if this guy continues to get better, my God,
unless LeBron James goes to the West or they change the playoff format, he will be in the play or in the finals every single year until
championship
he retires.
Contenders, and to me, a contender is a top 3 team in the East, right? I mean, that's what a contender is.
Are they though? Because can you contend with LeBron James in a 7-game series? You can't, unless you're.
He's getting older, though. I mean, he's what, 31?
Really? As if that's going to slow LeBron James down in a 7-game series, the most gifted and arguably one of the smartest players in the league in a 7-game series. You're going to beat him 4 times with a team like the Sixers, unless you're super stacked like the Warriors. No chance. No chance.
Well, yeah. Again,
once, but you're not going to catch him 4 times.
Yeah, but we don't know what they're going to look like, and they have the number 1 pick out. Joel Embiid is an amazing piece to have. That team is going to be exciting in a couple of years, Matt. And yeah, they're honestly you put Simmons, you put Embiid, and then you put an all-star point guard. All of a sudden, you have a ball team. So I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it open. Like, they might be contenders in maybe 2 years, man.
The throne in the East is locked up until LeBron James says that he's done, in my opinion. With the playoff format the way it is, and with LeBron being who he is, I can't see, unless a super team is made in the East, I can't see anybody stopping him. I just can't see any change in the Eastern Conference unless there's a playoff format change.
What if Toronto gets Paul Millsap?
The Cavs have owned the Raptors, and I don't believe in the Raptors personally yet. I think they're a damn good team, but they haven't proved it to me yet. And again, it comes down to the fact that you have to beat LeBron 4 times. If you had to beat him only twice or 3 times, I'd say, okay, maybe. But 4 times, how can you bet against LeBron James 4 times unless he's playing a team like the Warriors or the Spurs? Well, not even the Spurs anymore, the Warriors.
Yeah. I agree.
You just can't. You can't right now. And I think that's a testament also to the playoff format. But I agree with you. I think the Philadelphia 76ers have the chance to be one of the best teams in the East in the coming years, as long as, 1, they can stay healthy. And 2, I think they need to add maybe, like you said, a quality guard. But boy, have they suffered for it. So they certainly deserve to start getting in that conversation. So
I'm good, man. All I have to say is, to all the fans, again, thank you guys for all the support. Stay tuned for more giveaways, because we love giving out tickets and autograph trading cards and all that good stuff. So just stay tuned for that, my man. To everyone, really.
LKB Film says that I'm dreaming about the playoff format. You're probably right. However, great ideas, a lot of them start as dreams. So, hey, just if it happens, I'm telling you, it would be good for the game of basketball. It's never going to happen. But if it happened, it would be phenomenal for the game of basketball. So just remember that. Matt George sent you, hey, if that ever happens. Ding.
Yeah, and Matt, talking about dreams, Adam Silver said that he's open about charging fans to watch 5 minutes of a basketball game. And we wrote an article earlier today talking about that. Just quickly, just give me like a brief overview of what your opinion is on that.
Almost like, I haven't read the article. I saw it, but I didn't have the chance to look at it, and I haven't looked too far into it. Almost like potentially like a NBA red zone type thing, to where it's like the final 5 minutes of the game.
I like it. Personally.
I can understand it being appealing to the common fan.
To the recreational fan.
Dude, even when the Cavs and the Warriors play, or the Cavs and like a major team plays, I have a hard time watching games all the way through. Exactly. Even like the opening night of the NBA is always exciting. And one of the opening night games was the Cavs and the Knicks, right? I watched maybe 20 minutes of that game, and I recognize that I'm seeing one of the best basketball players ever play. But I take advantage of that, and two, it's hard in today's day and age to keep that attention for that long unless you're a diehard fan of the team. Hell, I even struggle watching all 48 minutes of the Kings sometime unless I'm at the game. And sometimes even when I'm at the game, I'm not watching all 48 minutes because sometimes you don't want to have to watch 48 minutes of them. But no, I think it's a great idea. And if it can work, they have to work a lot of it out. But the NFL Red Zone has become one of the main, if not the main ways to watch football now for the common fan. So if the NBA can market that and work it out, it's a genius idea. And I think that's also a testament to who Adam Silver is as a leader.
He's open to everything. He's open to legalizing gambling, which I would love. So, I mean, let's do it.
So certainly a good conversation to have. We're curious for your feedback on that. If you want to give your 411 on that, or if you want to chime in on my idea about changes to the playoff format, if you think it's a stupid idea, tell me, but be nice about it. If you think it's a good idea, pad my ego. I love it. Also, your thoughts on the DeMarcus Cousins contract extension. Do you like it? Do you not? Would you give him a no trade clause? And why? So many things to talk about involving the Sacramento Kings and involving this podcast, and we want you to chime in on everything you want to chime in on. You can do so right here on YouTube. You can do so on the Cowbell Kingdom website itself, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, MySpace, if you're weird, I guess. You can do whatever you want to reach us. We'll try and see everything, and we try to respond to everything. But until next time, my name is Matt George for my partner, Leo Biez. Thank you so much for listening to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. We'll see you very soon. Hope to see you at the game tomorrow night, Kings and Cavs, from the Golden One Center. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.